I had bought some real estate investments and, had some money coming in that I wasn't working for and realized that kind of after a full on panic attack of a lot of things that had happened in that medical device job, that this is not for me.
Welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I am Adrienne Green, and today we have with us the amazing Mandy McAllister. Thank you so much for joining me, Mandy.
So excited to be here, Adrienne.
We are going to have so much fun. So I have known Mandy for years. She brought me into Go Abundance Women, which is this awesome organization that's really helped me scale up my business opportunities, my real estate investing, and is, I think, one of the major factors in the way that I have a life where I am traveling all the time. So Mandy was like one of those very important dominoes that made everything fall into place. And I'm so excited for her to share her story with you about her own transformation, her journey with multifamily investing, her expertise with community and networking. So, guys, buckle up, pay attention, and let's learn. So, Mandy, how did you get here? What did you do before real estate and what are you doing?
Sure. I mean, I grew up a farm kid in a town of 1,000 people. I got curious and I, started kind of a young age asking like, well, why not me? Like that audacity that doesn't hit a lot of small towns. So I ended up failing forward into a volleyball scholarship, and then medical device sales was kind of where I spent the bulk of my career. I chose not to go to medical school because I didn't want to be on call. And then I ascended this ladder of medical device sales such that I was on call for a sales gig, Adrienne. The
Oh
universe
my
has
goodness.
the best sense of humor, right? So it was kind of about that same time that I had, even though I'd been curious about real estate investing for a very long time, I could never get over myself enough to buy something for express purpose of investment. And roughly at that same time that I realized, oh, wait, the thing I've been trying to avoid for my whole life, big life decisions were based on not being on call, and now I'm on call. I had bought some real estate investments and, had some money coming in that I wasn't working for and realized that, kind of after a full on panic attack of, a lot of things that had happened in that medical device job, that, this is not for me. This type of schlepping life, like chasing a number to make the same money the next year, you have to, double and triple sales. But if you double and triple work and something you're doing for yourself, you double and triple the money you are making. So I really kind of decided in that, parking deck panic attack that I had, that what I need to do is lean into the real estate investment, figure out how to put a little bit of scale onto this so that I can really buy my way out of my W 2. And, kind of that's really how it all started.
That's amazing. First, that you had real estate in the first place. And while I'm sure that parking deck panic attack sucked, that was the low point that prompted you to make the hard choices and be out of your comfort zone. So, what did it look like to go from, probably a casual real estate investor to realizing I got to get my house in order and I got to get this in place so that I can scale and replace what was probably a pretty good income? What was that journey?
First step was I realized this is a math problem, right? So what I need is dollars coming in to live my life. And I can just do that math problem. A thing I say a lot is when you got a problem to solve, it always becomes easier to solve that problem if you can put more truth to the problem. There's nothing more truth than a math problem, So I did that math and realized that I had a fourplex and a sixplex. I kind of like immediately found what scale felt like buying that four and the six. And then, being around other people buying larger stuff, I saw a lot of advantages to going a little bit bigger than that. There were a lot of people in communities that I hung out in who were buying, 400 unit properties and syndicating. Well, that felt like a job. Like you do it and you sell it in 3 or 5 years. Like that, I don't want to sign up for another job. I want to own something that's going to pay me every single month forever. I call that forever money. Right. So, how do I build this floor of income in a way that I utilize the benefits of multifamily, but still do it in a way that it's mine forever? And what that ended up looking like was I found a couple partners and we started buying the 50-ish unit properties, 30 to 50-ish unit properties. So those are great because they're kind of in this like Goldilocks area, that they're way too big for like your normal mom and pops. Like, if all somebody who's listening has done is like a single family home, they probably hear 30 units and they're like, oh no, that's way too big, right? But then there's the institutional investors or the syndicators that look at a 30 unit and they think, oh my gosh, that's way too small. And it becomes this perfect space that there's not a ton of competition, but you can also get, the property management on it is so different. If you can get something that's large enough to get a single person in charge of it, that is what is life changing in terms of the property management and the type of loans you can get. There's a government backed loan. They call it agency debt. Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac have this investment grade stuff that's non recourse. Non recourse means I'm not personally liable if it hits the fan on one of these properties, right? So it felt very belt and suspenders. It felt very like automatic scale. And this opportunity to figure out that, it's not harder to buy a 30 unit property than it is to buy a 4 unit property. It's just more. And a thing that I've had an opportunity to teach on a whole bunch is this realization that, like, oh my gosh, it's not harder, it's just more. And if you bring in a partner or make some plans around it, you can scale and treat it like a business much faster.
I love it. I love how you figured it out. You found this niche. That's been amazing. What were some, I love systems, I love tech. So let's kind of dive into a little bit like, because I know you are like really strategic with that stuff too. If somebody else is thinking about doing this, like what would you be recommending to them? Or what were some hard lessons learned that
Sure.
you'd love to pass along some wisdom?
I am all about failing forward. I made a lot of mistakes, getting comfortable with the making of mistakes, especially high performing women that were high performing girls. And, I don't know if you've seen the TED talk of girls are taught to be perfect and boys are taught to be brave. Well, this perfectionist thing that lots of girls have, I'm going to send you this TED talk. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. But it's this idea of like, be here, be safe, be perfect, get straight A's. So if you were a high performing girl, failure or making a mistake to move forward is something that is not in your lexicon, is not in something that feels like an okay move. So that, it's not really a system, but getting my brain into that. And a book that had really helped me with that is The Psychology of Money, which is actually why we put that in the welcome pack for Go Abundance Women, because this idea of I don't need to be perfect, I just need to be reasonable enough with what I'm placing my money in. So, in terms of systematic approach, I really do feel, and this is the way that I set up this, lots of people want to pick my brain. So, I put it all into a course so that I could just kind of get it out without having to invest all of the hours each time I'm talking about it. But the first thing we talk about is you got to pick a market. Right? If you become an absolute expert in one area, you're going to know what a bargain looks like. You're going to know that this rent will work here, but not across that highway. But you don't get that if you're trying to look at 74 different places. So, how can you be an expert in one thing, really put blinders on where it makes sense, and then really get as granular as possible? Apply that truth to the problem so that you can tell all of the people that I'm looking for a 30 to 50 unit B class property in Indianapolis, hopefully on the west side. 1 to 2 bedrooms would be ideal. That you now have something on in your brain that when you hear of that 30 to 50 unit in Indianapolis that's 2 bedrooms, you're going to think, I got to tell Mandy about this. So, how can you get so crystal clear that somebody and make that ask? Because, also women don't ask in the same way that our brave male counterparts tend to, that, I am turning people's brains on to help me achieve the goal that I want to achieve. So that is kind of a systematic approach that I took. And that's kind of how we found the first 53 unit that we did.
Awesome. And you made me think of something else with that. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think that any market can work, right? That, or that people should be looking for certain market characteristics? Like, should people just choose one market and go all in it? What are your thoughts, like higher level on choosing a market?
I love that. So the ultimate question I try to answer is, will someone want to rent this in 30 years? Right? So if I can kind of start to figure out with data, truth to the problem, if someone will want to live here in 30 years, I can look at what's happening with either population growth or population decline. I can look at if jobs have come in. I can look at if GDP has grown, right? I can tell you, I live in the suburbs of Chicago. Illinois has shrunk year over year in population for like the last decade and a half. In my opinion, that is evidence that people might not want to rent something or be moving out, and demand will be less in Illinois in 30 years if that is the population direction it's moving. However, Indiana is getting a lot of people, and a lot of jobs are going there, right? Because the way they tax businesses, like it works a lot better. It's a lot easier to do business as a landlord in Indiana than in Illinois. So will somebody want to rent something high level in Indiana? I think way more than Illinois. And that's why I sold everything in Illinois and bought in Indiana. That being said, I also buy in the Louisville market. So, while the Andrew Carnegie, put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket, I'm not really scared about having multiple 30, 50 unit buildings in one kind of MSA if I really believe in that MSA's growth and how that state manages things. But that being said, when I think focus, when I think blinders, many times when I try to coach someone up to get really clear on a single market, on a single buy box, that feels like forever. And that feels constricting. And like, oh my God, I can only buy a 50 unit building in Indiana forever for the rest of my life. No, it's for this transaction. And then when this transaction is complete, you're going to reassess. And maybe if Indy is not where you want to double down, you'll look somewhere else. As a matter of fact, my first kind of larger purchase was Kenosha, Wisconsin, because Foxconn was coming in. There was going to be 10,000 jobs. It was this whole thing. Trump flew in and gave the thumbs up into Kenosha, and then not 10,000 jobs, but like 2 jobs came to Kenosha, right? So I just reassessed and realized Kenosha was not it, where to double down. I kept that asset. It's a great asset to this day. But then we started buying in Indiana. So it's not a forever thing. And, you can be in multiple markets, but I don't think you can be in too many. I think 2, 3 is enough to keep your eyes on, to maybe be an expert in 2 or 3. I get real nervous when syndicators come to me having portfolios in like 10 different states. Like that makes me really nervous.
And that's a really good point because I totally see that's, shiny object syndrome. We get investors who want to hop, oh, I get 2 places here, I'm going to hop to a new market. It's like, no, master this. And then maybe we look at something else. But another thing you hinted at there with your question about, do people want to live here in 30 years? And something you talked about in your intro, I'd love to dive into is like, what is your time horizon here? Like, are you doing like value add and you're refining and you're going to hold for 30 years? Or are you going to sell at a certain point? What's the big picture time strategy there?
Awesome. So the ultimate goal is to have the floor of income, right? I want that floor of income to be $80,000 a month. That is the ultimate goal, right? So end of day, if I have a building that is cash flowing on permanent debt, so debt that has a term of, call it 10 to 15 years at a minimum, then I know that I'm going to be able to depend on that cash flow in a real way. So the ultimate goal is to buy those kind of coupon clipping annuity type buildings and to sit on them. However, to get into those kind of stabilized assets, it costs a lot of money, right? So you've got to do things that will bring in money to then put them into that. I call it a one-time money bucket and a forever money bucket. So if you're going to exchange your time for dollars, you only get to do that one time. If you're going to flip a house, you only get to sell that house one time. If you're going to syndicate, I would argue that you only get that acquisition fee one time and you only get that disposition fee one time. So those are one-time money activities. I have to do one-time money activities to then take that, chunk of cash, that pile of cash, and put it into the forever money bucket that is going to pay me every single month forever. So end of day, my sweet husband is a high school teacher. And it's funny, I have a countdown on my phone and I looked at it yesterday. He can retire in 11 years, 3 months, 2 hours, 6 minutes, 42 seconds, 46 seconds. Yeah, right. So I have 11-ish years to go buy a couple more of these mid-size multis by myself. Because the first 53 unit that I bought with a couple of partners, it throws off $18,000 or $19,000 worth of cash flow every single month. And I own that with 2 partners. If I did that by myself, I get way closer to that huge audacious goal of, $40,000 to $80,000 a month. Right. So the goal is to come up with these piles of cash to then buy these annuity type buildings and sit on them, because I really believe that that is the path to a billionaire status.
Are you planning a real estate event, mastermind, or podcast and want a speaker who delivers real, actionable strategies? I teach investors how to run their portfolios like a business without the chaos. Book me for your next event at adriennegreen.com/speaking, and that link is in the show notes as well. Awesome. Do you have a preference for like the one-time cash activities that you're using to fund the annuity type, or what does that look like? What do you love?
That's a great question. That is something that has been kind of a moving target. Multifamily has not penciled in the same way that it did 5 years ago. So I've kind of been sitting on my hands because when it comes to that forever money bucket, you don't have to be right. When you're getting 18, $19,000 per transaction in a month of cash flow, you don't have to be right 300 times. You have to be right like 3 times and then you're done. Right. So the pressure coming off of that has been really great for my brain. That being said, figuring out that one time money stuff, one thing that's been kind of all the rage in Go Abundance Women is, when real estate doesn't pencil, let's talk about buying a business. So I was bitten by that bug and I decided I wanted something that was close to me. I wanted something that had as few employees as possible. And I wanted something that, had a large real estate footprint because that's the language that I speak. And I ended up settling on either laundromat or a car wash. I actually decided all of this at one of our summits in Chicago. And then I started underwriting laundromats and I started underwriting car washes. And I ended up finding one about 6 months later that worked. And my husband and we bought a car wash in the suburbs of Chicago. And it's going well. It's going okay and it cash flows, but I'm in it. I'm in it in a way that the whole play is to not be in it, and this scale is not enough to be able to afford someone full time to put their brain on it. Right. So this was a misstep, in my opinion. So I either need to go buy like 4 more car washes to afford that person, or I need to sell the one that I've got. So we're going to position the car wash to sell it because, it's not something that I want to double down on. We've also, a motel asset that I bought, which is kind of like short-term rentals plus scale of the small multis that I love. I was able to buy out a partner, and that, no BS, speaking it into the universe, it's going to be worth double what it's worth at the end of the season because of the way we're managing it. It's really working. So when I'm able to sell that, that will be 1031able potentially into one of these forever money annuity small multis that I'm looking at. So my favorite is to reposition an asset to do the thing I know I'm good at. And if I get my hands dirty, I know that it works. So that's what's happening at the motel now, and that's what's happening at the car wash. I just need to position those to make them 1031able into these larger assets.
I love it. You're doing it and you're sharing like the peaks and the valleys. So thank you so much for that. I love it. So Mandy, I know that community and networking has been such a big part of your journey. And like I said in the intro, you brought me in, you were my introduction to Go Abundance Women, which has been pivotal in my journey. So I'd love to hear just how you got into Go Abundance Women, with the difference that community has made in your life. I mean, you shared one example right there with deciding to do this car wash at an event.
Well, I mean, so much interesting stuff happens when you get around other people who want the best for you, who are going to challenge you in the right way. I always say that you get 2 arms for a reason, one to pull yourself up, but one to pull other people up along with you. And when I had the chance to meet you, I thought, this is the most effective woman I have ever met in my entire life. I need more of you in my life. Come meet my girls, right? So even, from multifamily stuff to, the day-to-day struggling of bookkeepers stuff. Do you have a resource that will help me? And can we share in that resource too? I don't know. Our girl Allison Bridges has a hair product for curly hair. This is killer. We are very much just looking out for each other and trying to challenge each other in the right ways. I ended up joining Go Abundance Women. It used to just be a men's mastermind. And I actually tried to join when it was a men's only mastermind, and then found out that the women's division had started, and I joined the minute that I knew that it existed. The guys on the Bigger Pockets podcast had joined, and what they had to say about getting around people doing bigger stuff and challenging you in the right way, it was absolutely true. So I really do believe that, number one, I've been part of multifamily masterminds too, which have been really good, mostly because when you feel alone, when you feel like the only person doing the thing you want to do, you feel freaking crazy. And, a quote I steal all the time from Jamie Kern Lima's book Worthy is sometimes when you're feeling that crazy for wanting to do something big in your life, maybe you're not crazy. Maybe you're just the first person you know who's going after it. Right. And if you get
Right.
around a lot of other people that are running in that same direction, doing the same big level things, your brain turns on in a different way. What looks like a
Right.
risk can get mitigated because I've failed forward in car washes. You want to buy a car wash? I'll tell you the 8 things not to do or the things to look at. So there's
Right.
always a resource, there's always a person ready to share their knowledge if you get in the right circles. So that plus, the imposter syndrome that largely my experience of life is as a woman. And I see so many high performing women with imposter syndrome that I couldn't possibly be on that stage. I couldn't possibly, do that thing by myself. Well, I mean, I've had it too. I've really actively worked through it. And the more I get around people that are doing really big stuff, I'm like, wait, I belong. And
Right.
sometimes I get around in rooms with people who own billion-dollar companies. And I think, you're the one who does that? Like my girls and I, we could run circles around you? So it's really kind of helped my brain space that, to trust my own judgment. I think that that is one of the big life things that we're all chasing. How do I get to a place in whatever thing that I'm doing that I trust my own judgment, that I don't have to rely on what somebody else told me, that I really have a sense of who I am, what I want, what I believe, so that I can trust that own judgment. And that's really helped me being around people challenging me like you. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, and since a lot of our listeners are real estate investors, I feel like
Mhm.
it's important to mention that you get all these great things in Go Abundance Women that are universal, and a big chunk of the people in it are doing real estate investing as well.
Yes. Well, everybody's an entrepreneur, right? Or has a very entrepreneurial mind. So, the women who own daycares or the hair salon, right? Like they still have a very heavy exposure to real estate because, in my opinion, the
Mhm.
single greatest proven asset to create millionaires. You believe the whole, most millionaires are made by way of real estate thing. You would anticipate that the tribe of millionaires is largely real estate investors. So the entrepreneurs even have a really heavy real estate exposure and learning things. The motel never would have been a thing. This asset that is going to help me move strongly in the direction of that $40,000 to $80,000 a month at the end of the day, that only exists in my portfolio because I met a lot of short-term rental people because I was challenged
Right.
to think about an idea differently. If you're in your one little world, if I would have stayed just in my little multifamily world, all you're going to talk about
Right.
is the same four things over and over again. New ideas happen when you expose yourself to people doing different stuff.
I think that's a really good point. Like, you're going to have support in what you do, connections in what you do, and exposure to new things in Go Abundance Women in the way that a lot of other masterminds do not offer. We talk about the real estate investing there, and yet, like you mentioned, there's a whole bunch of people who are running businesses or who are buying businesses and doing all that. So you've really got all of that entrepreneurialism, all of that wealth creation happening for sure. One thing I would love if somebody's listening to this and they're like, could that group be for me? How would you describe like who is Go Abundance Women for? And if somebody is a good fit, what should they do?
Well, Go Abundance Women is the tribe of healthy, wealthy, generous women who choose to lead epic lives. We help women who are already accredited investor status get to the next level of their life. And, one big thing that I've loved about this that I didn't realize that this is why I needed a group of women like this in my life was yes, the money matters. But sincerely, once you figure out money to a certain point, the whole world opens up to the stuff that's more important. Are you going on adventures? One big thing, we do this thing called the life happiness index, where you kind of rate how happy you are on a bunch of different stuff. And would your life be better served if you did more of it? And I felt really good about my health and my business. And I realized, oh, darn. I'm not going on any adventures. So just because I was challenged myself in this way, I ended up, we bought an RV and we go on a lot of RV trips. But the correct person, or the person we can serve best and that can, add to the community is a woman who's already successful and who's hungry for something more. Right? Because this is the type of thing that you only get out of it what you put into it. So, it's not some magic Kool-Aid drink that you drink and poof, you're happier. But this is the ability to find the resources, the ability to find the accountability, the ability to find the introductions that are going to help you take whatever thing you want to take to the next level. It's going to set rocket fuel on it.
I think you're right. I think that it's part of the reason that, like I said, I'm traveling the world with my family now, which most people never achieve. I think abundance was a factor there. So if someone feels like, oh my goodness, that's me, what should they do?
The best way to kind of enter our ecosystem, if you go to our website, goabundancewomen.com, you can apply. There's an inquiry form that you can fill out and just start to get engaged with our team. Or you can get on our newsletter down at the bottom. So you get into your inbox Monday motivation and just kind of some mindset type stuff that we all subscribe to. That because, the mindset piece of this whole game of life and success is something you got to work on every single day. It's just like going to the gym. You got to go to the gym of your brain and get that positioned in the right way to move forward. So those are the two best ways.
Perfect. And I think you mentioned before that, if somebody's a real estate investor looking at multifamily, there's going to be a little incentive related to Go Abundance
Oh
Women.
yeah. I'll tell you all about that. So I have taught a course on this small multiplay, the mid-size multiplay that I do for some time. And, I realized that the kind of one-on-one stuff that I was doing with a small group for, $5,000 a person, I can't impact as many people as I would love to impact. I actually included the underwriting tool that I worked with a developer to create to look at these mid-size multis in a way simplified way so that the decision making process is a lot easier. So instead of, the 5 grand for the small group, we're now going to be selling that for $97 because we want to impact as many people as possible. Say GBW 97 is the coupon code to go buy that multifamily course. I'll make sure that my admin gets you all the right links, but GBW 97, it'll look like you're buying it for 1500 or something, but you'll buy it for 97.
Awesome. And guys, that's going to all be in the show notes below. So if you're driving or whatever, like it's all going to be there for you to grab later. Okay. That's amazing. I'm super excited. I have decided that I need to take that course, just so you know, Mandy. So looking forward to that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like so much wisdom. I want to master it all. And then, as we wrap up here, I'd love to circle back to our closing questions. You can, talk about your portfolio. You can talk about, just life in general, but I'm curious what a transformational system that you've implemented in your life or business has been for you.
Honestly, we've kind of talked about it already, but the getting around people doing the thing you want to do. And for me, it was first starting a multifamily meetup so that I got to talk to other people doing multifamily. Then it was, the idea of being a female entrepreneur. You show up with a very masculine energy to go get work done. But then to be successful in a relationship, you got to have a feminine energy, in my opinion. And I screwed up a first marriage because I didn't do that well. So getting around other women who kind of had a similar need to switch between versions of themselves to have success in all areas. Go Abundance Women was that for me. So whatever thing you want to get good at, can you find a group of people already doing that thing and get next to them?
I love it. And then next, what is your go-to tool for managing operation?
We got a bunch of them. So my friend Adrienne Green is the most effective human I've ever met in my whole life. So I rip off a lot of her systems, but two that are completely instrumental between my admin and me, our teams at GoBundance, everything goes on Slack so that conversations involve only the right people. And we put everything into Asana, workflow project board, so that there's full transparency. So that when someone completes something or is moving something forward, they can post it there and nobody has to check up on anybody in a micromanagey type of a way, but there's full visibility to everyone. Those have been game changing for us.
I love my task management system, so I am all here for that. All right. And then finally, what is a book that has been transformational in your investing journey?
There's so many books, Adrienne. If I only have to pick one, well, Gary Keller's The One Thing. Here's the Cliffs Notes. What's the one thing that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? That focusing question changed my life. And then Sharon Lechter, Think and Grow Rich for Women. You've probably heard of Napoleon Hill's version, but she has updated it and put the kind of female brain into it. If you've not read that, absolutely pick it up. That was also life changing.
Great recommendations. And then, Mandy, if somebody would like to connect with you afterward, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, the best way to find me, my website, mandymcallister.com. It has, ways to get in touch with me. It has all my social media handles, all of the things. So that's the best place.
Perfect. MandyMcAllister.com. We will have that in the show notes. So, wow, what an amazing conversation that I just had with Mandy. Super exciting. If you loved today's episode, please take a minute to subscribe subscribe wherever you are listening and leave a review and then share it with a fellow investor. Who else needs to hear about Mandy's story? Who could you help by sharing this today? Your support helps us bring even more value-packed episodes out, and I'll see you on the next one.